Welcome to Lead the Way with Anna Gauker. Your guide, Anna Gauker, is on a quest of her own to find effective ways of creating change and inclusion in our communities. You have come to the right place if you believe in truth, justice, and coffee. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, this is Lead the Way, and I'm Anna Gauker. Today is all about improving self-belief and figuring out how to lean into your unique ability to lead. Laura Gmeinder is a former human resources executive turned business and leadership coach. Laura is a woman of many titles, but she says her favorite is potential igniter. This is a topic that particularly resonates with me. I have found that the most challenging part of becoming an authentic leader and making a positive impact on those around me is developing a true understanding of myself and fully embracing the unique traits I have to offer. Laura Gmeinder is a real expert in this area. She is a former president of the Junior League of Madison, graduate of Leadership Greater Madison, was named a Brava magazine Woman to Watch, and has been highlighted in publications like Huffington Post, The Wall Street Journal's Market Watch, and U.S. News and World Report. I could go on, but I won't. Let's get right to it. This is my conversation with Laura Gmeinder. Well, thanks so much for making time for us today. I am really excited to learn more about you and your business. You know, coaching and consulting, that's something that sounds so interesting to me, and I feel like you have such a successful business. What got you in that career path?
Well, thank you so much for having me here and the kind words. I'm so excited to talk to you today. You know, I love what I'm doing, and I just feel so grateful that I did find this. I had started my career in HR, so I was doing a lot of informal coaching and counseling and leadership development. And about 7 years into my career, I kind of had a quarter life crisis, and it wasn't the right fit for me. And so, in doing some soul searching and looking outside of me, for my next opportunity, I was looking at, jobs that I want to be, a trainer, or like what were some of the things that I might be like most interested in doing with my background. And so I took a 2-day career change workshop through the UW. And at the breaks and lunch, not all of, but a lot of the participants were coming up to me to like ask me questions about career change and transition. And so I had kind of a light bulb moment, like, what if I was a career coach? What if I was a leadership coach? And so about a week after that, I was talking to one of my girlfriends that I was in the junior league with, and she had mentioned that she had worked with a life coach, and I had never even heard of that term. So I was like, "Ooh, that's interesting to me." So I started working with a life coach, started life coach training. My mentor found out I was doing it, and she was in the middle of a transition, and she said, "I want you to be my coach," and then the rest is history.
Can you talk to me more about that early phase of your career? What got you into HR?
Kind of by default. I was one of those people. I was always very social, and while I love learning, I'm not really a good test person necessarily. So I was met the bar to get into the UW, which is kind of hard to do. And then once I was there, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to major in, and so I needed a major to graduate. So I kind of by default, I was thinking that I'd be a teacher. And then I couldn't get into the School of Education because I had a bad first semester. So I was looking at other programs, and the School of Human Ecology had one that was for family and consumer education with the focus on community or business. There was 4 of us in the whole graduating class. It was that tiny of a major. And so I was like, well, that's kind of cool because it was like some adult education. And I grew up my whole life. My family is very into giving back to the community. So I grew up volunteering. So it made sense that I would work at a nonprofit. And to graduate, we had to have an internship either in a nonprofit or a business. And I never really done a lot of business, although my dad had taken over the family business. So I did a little bit of helping, answer the phones and things when I was a kid. So I was like, why don't I, check that out and do an internship in business? And so I ended up taken along with my best friend to her internship. And before that was even over, I got offered a position at a HR company or a company in the HR department before I even graduated from college. So I just fell into HR.
And what did you enjoy about that first experience as an intern in HR? What made you think, in the early part of your career, maybe this is the right place for me?
That's such a great question. I think part of me, and I'm going to be brutally honest here, like part of me thought it was so cool to be in the know. Like when you're in HR, you get to know all the secrets.
Yeah.
And I love being too, because like I was in charge of like company picnics. I was in charge of recruiting. I got to do just a little bit of training. So it's all the like warm fuzzy, and I'm an extrovert. So it's like all the people stuff. So that piece of it seemed like such a good fit. I just really enjoyed it.
It is true that people in HR are totally in the know. They're sort of completely essential now. I mean, I think it was kind of a new area in recent history, and now it's kind of become the nucleus of every organization or business that's starting out. You create something, you put it out into the world, and then once you start having people involved and you're hiring people and you're growing, you realize, oh yeah, how do we manage these people? What are we going to do with all these people? How are we all going to get along? So having someone like you who really likes interacting with everyone and kind of understanding the ins and outs of how the place operates, that's so essential. What made you think like maybe this is not for me after all?
Yeah, I think it really was starting to realize that when I was getting raises and promotions, that every time I was doing the things I was supposed to do to feel successful, climbing the career ladder, every time it was less of that warm fuzzy, that excitement. And so that was contrasted by the getting very involved in the community. I was in the junior league and I ended up getting a bunch of leadership roles and really feeling like I was making an impact. I was involved in the United Way, and just contrasting that, like, why do I just love doing all these different things in the community? It was energizing to me versus like at work, I just wasn't feeling like I was loving it. I started to feel not only wasn't it a lot of energy, I almost feel like it was like demotivating. Like, just, I really felt like it was soul sucking. And I started feeling like something else out there was like calling to me. And it was like this energy that was pulling me forward that would not go away. I was actually there 14 years and the first 7 of it. And so it took the next 7 to fully transition full time in my business.
You had started the business before you left, or you were starting to think about starting a business and exploring what that would look like for several years before you left?
Yes, that's a good clarification. I did a lot of research, a lot of dreaming because I just was so unhappy in the day to day, even though I had fabulous coworkers that were like family, but like what I was doing was not what I was put on this earth to do. And so I felt like I was living in someone else's life. So I did a ton of research because I was so scared. It was the only job I'd ever had. I didn't intend to start a business. Like I signed up for all the email lists, the blast that you get, Indeed, LinkedIn, like constantly pouring over those to say what job would be exciting. And I just was never getting anything that seemed like, yes, this is my dream job. And so it was kind of by default. Like once I started working with a coach 10 years ago, and then my mentor reached out and wanted me to coach her, I started working on the side coaching, and it was very under the radar. And then after I stepped down as president of the junior league, someone asked me, like, what are you going to do next? And that happened at the exact same time that our president was retiring, a president I had worked with almost my whole career, and someone else was going to be stepping into that role. And I had to do a little soul searching to be like, you know what? This might be the perfect time to leave because I didn't have it in me to help that new president, someone who had never led the company. Like, I didn't have it in me to be the best support. Like, she needed someone that was really going to be there and 100% committed to her success. And I wasn't that person.
That is such an important thing to be aware of in yourself. And also the fact that you were able to read the signs and understand, okay, there's something that doesn't feel right, there's something that doesn't fit here. What is it, and how can I explore this in a strategic way to really figure out what the right path is for me before just kind of blowing up a situation. I think a lot of us, we have these times in our lives where we know something's not right, but what is it? Like, it's so hard to really put a finger on it sometimes, and we can get really stuck in that confusion that it makes it such a challenge to find the way out. I think that it can be super exciting to know, oh, something different needs to happen. It could be a whole new chapter of my life. But the fact that you were able to find the right people who helped lead you in the right direction is so great. So you were at the workshop, flashing forward to discovering life coaching, and everyone was coming up to you, asking you questions, and making you feel like maybe life coach is the right thing. How did you really take the next step from there?
That's such a great question. And I think part of it was like, and what had been missing in my journey, I read a quote years back that really stayed with me. What's getting in the way is the way. And what was getting in the way was that I didn't know myself at all. I didn't deal well with my emotions. I didn't know how to process not feeling good with where I was, to really listen to my intuition, to really be the person I was meant to be. And so thinking about, back when that started, it was really a matter of trying to figure out, like, what is that next best step, and to really get to know myself, to take an assessment of my skill sets, right? So I had had a degree in adult education that I hadn't really that was not part of my identity. That wasn't something that I labeled myself with. So it was kind of revisiting that piece of my education and background and saying, what was I doing in HR? And what was I doing in all my community leadership? And saying, well, that really paints a picture of someone who is in the position, because the thing is, you can go to coach training, which I, highly recommend as a way to get skills, the tools, and the confidence, and at the same time to be able to, like, what life experience are you bringing to your clients? What life experience are you able to, be relating to people, right? It's not about giving advice and telling people what to do, and it's about illuminating that pathway and asking those powerful questions. So when I thought about, like, oh, maybe I could be a coach, I was really surprised to find out, with my background, my expertise, my skill sets, that I had a lot to offer as a coach.
What were some of those assessments like that you did to figure out what your skills were and what you had to offer?
I love professional development. I love assessments. And so it started with a Myers-Briggs, and kind of thinking about some of what that suggests as far as a career. I'm an NFTJ. I'm more of a visual person. So, but anyways, yeah, so that was part of the workshop, the career change workshop, to get us kind of thinking about stuff. And over the years, I've worked with a strengths coach to really figure out my strengths and how that looks in my business. I'm a huge fan of the Enneagram. I'm a 7. So I love bringing fun to everything I do, which I think, as much as I told you, like, that at the beginning, like, that the secret little, like, yeah, it's cool because you get to be in the know in HR. The thing that's super not cool about HR is that there's a lot of rules, and that you're the rule, like,
Yeah.
you're supposed to be the rule follower and the rule keeper. And I don't like rules. I like fun.
Yeah, in HR, you're truly the enforcer. So HR is fun to have at the party until it's not. And then it's your problem to bring down the mood and tell everyone what they're doing wrong.
Yes. Yes, I love that leadership, personal and professional growth and development piece, and absolutely hated sitting on the other side of someone telling them that their job was eliminated, or after several warnings, they were no longer employed by the company.
Exactly. And it's interesting that you say, I love assessments. I think that's really interesting. I was a psychology undergrad, so I'm a little familiar with assessments. And I usually interpreted anyone coming at me with like a personality assessment. I would think like, how dare you? Get away from me. I don't fit into any categories. I'm so unique, blah, blah, blah. So I wonder what that says about me. I'm not really sure.
Sounds like a little bit of a rebel streak to you, Anna.
Feels like it, probably. So can you tell me a bit about your business, how it started out, and how it's evolved?
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's, like, one of the coolest things that was really eye-opening for me, is that where I started and where I am today are pretty different, and just kind of what that looked like to transition into life coaching and to have a background in HR. You had a lot of people like, oh, do you want to, look at my resume? Do you want to help me with my LinkedIn? Where very quickly I realized that it was more kind of that leadership piece, that, helping people to communicate, being courageous, making courageous decisions aligned with our values, and being authentic. And so what that looked like to help women feel more empowered in the workplace. So I started doing much more of the intersection of kind of life and leadership coaching, which of course was, being the president of a women's leadership organization. In college, I was a president or VP of a women's leadership organization, but I've always been in a role and been passionate about empowering women. And then a couple years into my business, what started happening was the women that I worked with at the start of my business were coming back and they had gotten the raise, they had gotten the promotion, they had transitioned to another company. And the next challenge for them was starting their business. So that's how I got into business coaching, was that people were watching what I was doing online, or that by that time I had added speaking. So one of my income revenue streams is speaking and training. And so I was getting a lot of interest in, like, what are you doing and how can I do that too?
And that makes me think a lot about, okay, you started out in HR, which is basically all about structure. Like, you are the structure of the company, and like you said before, you understand how everything operates and comes together, and then you leap out and start your own business, and you become a leader, and your clients are seeing how you are growing and becoming more and more successful in what you're doing. Was it a challenge for you to kind of shift your mindset from being in an environment with so much structure to suddenly you have your own business, it's all up to you, you have to make everything happen? That can be a real struggle for a lot of people. What was that like for you?
Absolutely. I had a 4-month transition out of corporate where I had started working with some clients, and just the timeline. My boyfriend at the time broke up with me right before I left corporate, which was like horribly stressful. I didn't see it coming. And then all of a sudden, here I am. I have no structure, right? Because I left corporate and I'm trying to grow my business. And I remember the first week, I literally, because my internship turned into a job, and so I'm 14 years later, I've had no significant breaks. And so the first week, I was so overwhelmed and scared, and just like every emotion you can think of, a total emotional roller coaster, that I binge watched Netflix the whole week.
What
And
did you
then
watch?
Dexter,
Oh,
which is probably not the show to watch after your boyfriend breaks up with you, and at some point you need to get back out there and do the dating apps.
yeah. And that's probably a lot scarier if you're watching murdery television.
I know, right?
Very interesting. So, what helped you get out of that rut?
Yeah, I had to give myself a major pep talk, because I was like, if nothing changes, you are going to have to go back and get another corporate job. Like, you need to snap out of it, and you need to, like, take action and ask for help and create this business, right? Like, we as women are so used to people, we are raised to seek permission. We are raised to be told what to do. So I'm kind of sitting there like, okay, who's going to tell me what to do? And it's like, oh, I'm the CEO. I'm supposed to be telling me what to do.
What did you tell you to do?
To start experimenting. One of the first things I did was help a reporter out, Haro. I was on their email list back in the day, and they had asked for someone giving advice on career advice, leadership advice. And so I'm like, okay, I'll submit this. And it ended up getting picked up on the Monster website, which, of course, years ago, this was the big
Exactly.
place. And right away, someone read it and related to what I shared, and I signed a new client.
Wow. So, Monster.com picked up your article?
It did, and it was one of those things where the first couple years, really was a struggle. And I actually had just shared out on social media the other day, thinking back to that point. Like, I think I made like $8,000 in my business the first year, and I was so down on myself because I was working so hard, and I thought it was like, great that I was getting these clients. And little did I know, like, so many businesses actually don't even make any money, let alone survive the first 2 years.
Exactly. And you mentioned before that a lot of women seek out permission to take the next steps in their lives, to know how they're doing in life, if they're winning or not. And life coaching or career coaching or business coaching, that's really all about looking at yourself as someone who brings solutions and someone who can help others get things done or see their own great qualities and what needs to happen. How have you helped other people see themselves in that way?
Yeah, that's such a great observation and question, because I think that is the biggest challenge, especially for women, that how society expects us to be, how maybe our family values have been imposed on us, and what our potential is now to say you need to go inside to know who you are, to make peace with who you are, and not only make peace but really to like embrace that, like you are your competitive advantage, and you have unlimited potential, right? Like anytime you stretch out of your comfort zone, anytime you take a chance and a risk and do something more, and to know that what that really looks like if you are going to start a business or you're taking a big step up in your career, to know that sometimes you're the one that needs to give yourself permission, or to know that like what it looks like to really uh, be courageous and go for something. Like if you have a dream in your heart, it's there because it's supposed to be living out in the world. Like that's how I think about it. Like you wouldn't have a dream that you aren't able to achieve. And so what that really looks like to take some time to reflect and to make a goal and a plan. And a lot of times my role as a coach is really shining the light on blind spots, or really once like the conversation we have in our head, I always say like our brain isn't there to make us happy, it's there to keep us safe. So women often struggle with imposter syndrome. They struggle with perfectionists, like I'm a recovering perfectionist, the disease to please, putting everyone else's needs first. And so sometimes it's just really getting a handle on some of that, because we're what gets in our way so often.
Exactly. What ways have you been able to help other women improve their business strategy and confidence?
Yeah, I think that some of this is kind of normalizing, because for us as women, a lot of times we isolate and we kind of feel like we're the only one going through this. And a lot of times when I work with women in their business, once I build that trust, they're like, can I tell you a secret? My business is a hot mess. And it's like, uh, that's what business is. Like, we don't, like you, especially right now where we are in the world with a changing economy, we have COVID, we have, the social issues we're working through as a country, and what that really looks like to be able to say, like, it is hard starting and running a business. And it's extra hard. Like, I always think it's like we were talking about, kind of being a rebel. Like, to me, starting and running a business as a woman, like, that's the ultimate act of rebellion. Like, we have said no to, corporate, the male dominated like patriarch that is really what our economy looks like right now. Like, we have stepped out of that, and what we're doing is hard. We're in an ecosystem like my friends at the Doyen Group. When I first started volunteering and supporting them, to really call out that the ecosystem that we're in as women entrepreneurs is not created to support us. So we need to really shift and to be able to create something that is more supportive where women are and the skills they bring to their business, and to be supporting each other.
This podcast is all about leadership and how to see yourself as part of the solution to some of the biggest problems going on or challenges that our communities are facing. If you could build a leader in a lab, what do you think are the most important ingredients?
One of the things I always try to boil it down to, because I think there's so many leadership books and philosophies, and it can kind of be overwhelming, right? Like figuring, like, again, I have to be the perfect leader. But I think it really boils down to compassion and curiosity. And so if you are meeting everyone with those two ingredients, like compassion and curiosity, especially now, knowing that everyone has had their world rocked, knowing that everyone is grieving the norm, knowing that that's showing up for us in different ways, and to meet people where they're at and to just be super compassionate with them, super curious if things aren't aligned, and then also being really compassionate. The self-compassion goes a long way too.
That's so true. And I felt that way a lot in the last 12 months. Like, everyone we know is struggling. We just, like, know that as a fact. It's just true. Even if someone has their job for some reason, still has their job, or doesn't seem like they are going through the hardest time where they've remained healthy, it's still just the underlying reality for us all that we are all struggling. And it's so interesting that we still don't interact with each other with that assumption. And I don't really understand how we have this, I don't know, deficit or something. You have so many accolades in your business. You were featured in U.S. News and World Report and the Wall Street Journal. How did you get yourself to a place where you're making these huge connections, and what advice do you give to other women starting out their businesses?
I put that out in the world so that people really know that if I can do it, you can do it, right? Like, I am so honored to have those opportunities. I am so honored to have the awards and recognition that I have had. And a big piece of it was feeling like I needed to do these things for my worth and to grow my business. And so that has been a part of the journey in and of itself, right? To detangle those pieces of it. And for women that are wanting to start and grow businesses, what I really share is like, I have this little plaque that hangs up that says, do one thing every day that you're afraid of. And that has been my motto that I have lived by in my business. And like, constantly doing things that I am scared of. And what is on the other side of my fear? Usually I feel like super energized. Usually I feel super accomplished. Usually I feel like, oh, I could do that. Now I can do more. And so I always say, like, start small, but do something, right? If we take action, that's where we build our confidence. And if it works out the way that we thought it was, awesome, great. And if not, consider an experiment. Take that as feedback. Do something different. Like right now, I'm in the process of kickstarting a small group training program, coaching program, to help women grow their business. Well, I tried to launch something a couple years ago, and it wasn't the right time. I didn't put the right energy into it. It was a horrible flop. And I learned a ton of things. And now this time around, it is drastically a different experience. And I'm really excited to be doing it. And I'm not scared to be putting myself out there. And so I'm attracting a lot of amazing women to be part of this small group program.
What did you learn from your first attempt in starting this training program that you feel helped you make it more successful this time around?
I feel like for me, what I did was like really do some self reflecting. And when I did it the first time, when I tried to do it, I wasn't ready. and I didn't believe in myself. It was a total confidence thing, and that's what I was putting out in the world. And so having that lesson, and this time, like I did, one of the things I did to promote it was I've never had a Facebook group. I did a 7-day challenge and went live a bunch. So I did a lot of things that were out of my comfort zone, and there were some nights where I was like waking up in the middle of the night so scared, and my mind was trying to keep me safe. And it was like, you don't have to do this. This is too much time. This is too much energy. And those were the moments where I could have easily quit. I could have changed my path, but I would be doing that out of fear. And so what I would tell myself was like, I can do this. I will do what it takes to be successful. And that I have that faith in myself that I didn't have at that point. And reminding myself since that point, all of the experience, all of the growth I've had in those couple of years, right? Like you bring that forward, and knowing that this time too, I had a lot of support. I have a couple of VAs, I have an online business manager. Like I have a team around me helping and rooting me on. So it's just been such a different experience and such a different energy around putting that out in the world.
Well, this has been so great, Laura. Thank you so much. That was the amazing Laura Gmeinder. You can check out her website for helpful information and resources at lauragmeinder.com. All episodes of Lead the Way can be found on Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, and make sure to rate and review when you subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Thank you to Buzz Kumper for his voiceover artistry in the opening. This episode was brought to you by the time and talent of Tyler Willenbrink, Annie Petrus, and Jeremy Van Mill. I'm Anna Gauker. Until next time.